Ask Reddit. What are the signs that someone is fake rich? Taking pictures of with money to post on social media. Don't they feel at least a bit awkward while doing this? Saw a young black man at IHOP doing this to a random patron. For some reason, he wanted to show her he had a stack of hundreds. Trying to prove you're not ghetto can make you look ghetto. Old people put their hundreds in a bank. They try too hard to sound like they're rich. I work with business owners as part of my work. The ones who are definitely very wealthy are usually very type A personalities. They're very direct. They get things done when they need to get done and don't have time to nonsense around with proving how rich they are. The ones who are nonsense will boast themselves up, but not be able to back it up. They'll try to squeeze their big money purchases into a normal conversation. How are you? Terrible. I can't decide what Tesla I want to buy. They'll say things like, I'm making so much money, I'm struggling to find things to spend it on. Then they'll try to haggle down a $10 order or ask if a $50 order can be paid in installments. My boss, owner of the company, is very wealthy. The only sign of it would be his car. He has a Maserati. It is literally the only thing I have ever seen of his that looks costly. He doesn't brag. He shows up to work in polo shirts and jeans, or on weekends in t-shirts, shorts, and tennis shoes. He doesn't dress up, he doesn't show off, and he is most definitely type A. C, works on the weekends. He said he can get more done without people distracting him. My immediate boss, on the other hand, likes to talk about how expensive things are. She shows me her daughter's bills for college room, board, and tuition. She brings new appliances into the office so she can use them. Not at all so she can use them and then blatantly tell us how fantastic they are and how much they cost. She makes decent money, but probably not as much as she would like people to think, and she definitely shows off way more than the owner, while always trying to get people to call in favors from relatives so she can get something for cheap. When they keep exclaiming about how rich they are, bragging about all their top-notch purchases they made that day or week, and flail around their money or credit cards. The majority of the time they're just broke. It's someone else's stuff, or they're using credit cards like crazy and going deep into debt that they can't recover from. Plenty of people with huge homes and nice cars live paycheck to paycheck. They just have nicer toys. This is absolutely my parents. They are up there in their years and want to stop working, but the biggest house on the block and fancy imports are not cheap. They spend more in a month than I make in almost 2 years because they have to look like they're big ballers. I work in wealth management. There is a huge difference between being rich and being wealthy. Our wealthy clients are, for the most part, very lovely people. They have manners and consideration for others. They aren't flashy, and they don't talk about what they have, but you see that they all own good quality products. They're also not crazy demanding. They don't yell at you, and they don't expect something for coming downtown. If I saw any of these clients out and about, we'd have a pleasant conversation. I wouldn't be hiding in the bathroom until they leave. The rich are people that are usually making under $100K, but want you to think that they have millions. Everything is a negotiation because they don't want to or can't pay their bills in full. They are beyond demanding. They're rude and yell at you for things you can't control, like what the Dow closed at. And then they take none of your advice and then blame you for them deviating from the plan. And if they own a BMW, oof, get ready for a storm client. Not all rich own them. Not all BMW owners are jerks, and not all jerks drive BMWs, but they're the #1 car of rich jerks. The wealthy tend to dislike BMW, and don't worry, they'll let you know that they have a BMW, and you'll pretend like you're impressed. Obviously, I have to be nice and friendly since they're clients. I'm technically a luxury service, and it sounds hip to talk about your Uber, and even more to get a car all to yourself versus the ratty rep of DC cabs. The most routinely lovely clients I have are older people in high-dollar professions, like senior partners at law firms. Lawyers, in general, are actually my favorite as a class. Maybe it's the lack of stress of finances and not needing to put on airs, but I found them all to be collected, intelligent, agreeable people. I wonder if people trying to appear higher than they make them want to put others down so they look more elevated by comparison. Name droppers that mention wealthy people they claim to know to impress others. When they talk about the rich people things they do like it's out of the ordinary and you should be impressed. I worked for an internship with a kid who was actually wealthy, like getting paid every week and just left the paychecks in a drawer in his house, and would give student loans to his friends with zero interest. He would talk about taking like month-long trips in Asia, Europe, and flying to random places on a whim, and other weird rich people activities like they were regular activities. We could never get upset with him because he was just talking about his weekend. It just so happens that his weekend was spent at a party for a company he invested a bunch of money in. He's also fun to talk to because he can sniff out fake rich people like a drug dog. I'm not a Texan, but I believe they call this big hat, no cattle. All that, but yeah, it's one of those old sayings that just keeps being more relevant over time. I grew up on a horse farm where my family trained show horses for some pretty wealthy people, and a lot of posers. It's true that wealth whispers. The truly wealthy people in our circle were not very flashy or loud about it. They owned top quality things, clothing, cars, horse equipment, and kept these things meticulously maintained. But I don't recall seeing a lot of overt branding logos. The biggest differentiator was their reason for being involved in the horse show scene. They truly loved riding and animals, and it was a big part of their family life. Multi-generational involvement. They came to the barn, rode often, loved to groom their horses, and spend time with them. The fake rich were usually in the scene for a few years at most, had a bunch of cheap yet flashy equipment, were loud, and invited their friends out to the shows to drink champagne and show them how fancy they were. They never came out to the barn, never wanted to groom the horses, or really care about them. They usually got kicked out of their barns for failure to pay training bills. LOL. When they brag about being rich, buying an expensive car, etc. For really rich people, a luxury car or an expensive house is regular stuff. You won't hear them brag about it. They'll brag about other stuff. You'll see a rich guy roll up in a brand new Rolls Royce, and he'll brag about how well he did in the golf game last weekend. I mean, I was way over par in that golf game, but seeing that horse kick that woodchuck over the fence was magnificent. Used to work in the trust department of a major regional bank. The rude guy in the Armani was in debt to his eyes. The nice old couple with old car, the old house, and clothes from Sears, staggering wealth. No ego, no attitude. I met a bunch of them. Where exactly do these elderly couples live, and what's their security situation like? Farmers that own lots of land. Blah. Mom has fake friends like that, and they love to buy Louis Vuitton and expensive stuff they don't need just to rub it in. They work in a rundown hair salon with outdated styles. My mom works at a nail salon. I really do think it's bad for her mindset. She's in a constant state of proving her wealth to her coworkers and friends. Always has been. I'm very glad she's finally realizing what she's been doing is dumb, but at the age of 55 and deep in debt, it's a hard slump for us to get out of. I have this theory that the larger the polo icon is on their shirt, the lesser the chances are they know anything about the sport of polo. You could expand that out to large logos in general. Actually, let's just expand this out even more. They spend more time talking about what they're buying, wearing, than they do talking about what they're doing. There's a great study out there called Signaling Status with Luxury Goods. The Role of Brand Prominence, 2010. You should be able to find it quite easily if you're interested. The main gist is the confirmation that with almost every luxury brand, the more expensive the product is, the smaller, more subtle the logo will be, since the flashy clothes will be bought not by people who appreciate the brand for its quality, etc., but by those who want to signal something to their peers, namely that they're elevated by being able to afford a luxury brand. Many companies have fully bought into that. Think of Armani Exchange, who have t-shirts for as little as $30, and which is, dare I say, exclusively worn by people who want the word Armani to be on their shirt. It has very little to do with the actual Armani. Actual rich people have nothing to prove. It's why you generally see that people who are filthy rich and people who are poor tend to be on the same wavelength. They don't wear flashy clothes or feel the need to tell anyone how rich they are or flaunt what they've been buying. Mind you, that doesn't apply to new money, so who knows? Like, for example, those Kardashians. Speaking of new money, Some 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt eventually. They are often either not accustomed to wealth or they have been fake rich their entire lives, so cash flashing is their MO. When they say they have 6 private jets, but they only have 4. Come on, Gregory, I know you're messing with me. The rest aren't at your uncle's house. So pathetic what poor people are doing these days. Right? People like this really chafe my chinos. In fact, I was at my cousin-in-law's cotillion ball last year and found out that Uncle Benedict drives himself everywhere. If he didn't have a chauffeur, that's fine, but he didn't have to lie about it. Plus, I still owe my chauffeuse and under-butler a drink, since I took them up on a bet that he was lying. Sigh. If they carry a lot of cash on them to show you how rich they are. This can be a false positive, though. When I was growing up, one of the dads of my high school friends owned a construction business. Dude had a lot of money, like 6 figures in MSFT stock in the 80s, plus dozens of rental properties, etc. He used to always carry with him a roll of 50s and paid cash. Probably $1,000, I'd guess. I didn't grow up poor, but my parents were lower middle class and cheap as hell. $10 was a huge amount of money for me growing up. I'll never forget the first time I saw it as a teen. I was like, wow, this dude is rich. I mean, he actually was, but yeah, 30-something years later, I still remember seeing that and being blown away. There is an old stat from the book The Millionaire Next Door that said only 25% of million-dollar homes are owned by actual millionaires. Our area is full of ordinary-looking, newly built houses priced at over $400,000. We have tons of nonsense-looking, torn-down houses here worth well over $1.5 million. Source: I live in Vancouver. Wearing a genuine Rolodex watch. I just got the image of someone wearing a mini Rolodex on their wrist and flipping through a bunch of tiny index cards, and now I can't stop laughing.